Hello and welcome to another Retro Crazy Mini Byte. We are revisiting the Sony PS1. If you remember, in the video I did where I looked at a number of these, I had a couple where there were issues with the laser. As far as I'm aware, it's not the laser itself. There were broken gears and therefore the laser wouldn't actually travel correctly and reading a disc was basically impossible. So what's changed? Well, I've got one of the two that needed some work done, so let's pop this to the side. And what has changed has been the arrival of this. So let's pop this open and see what's inside. So the company is SGD, and inside here should be exactly what I've been waiting for. A number of very small, very small 3D printed gears. I can print 3D items, I've shown that before, various cases and things like that, but that's FDM printing. And these gears are, well, rather small. And as a result, FDM printing is not ideal for these. So these should have been printed using resin, which means their tolerances should be a little bit better. There are a couple of high spots which I will need to just break free. That's obviously where it's been on the platform for printing. So we're going to see if we can fix our PS1 using these. Now I have to give a huge shout out to RetroGameRevival. He is the one that did the CAD design. He posted this link up for me so I could download them. He's made them freely available if you want to go and get your own. Obviously, well, I got a few because I never know, I need at least two. I grabbed some spares. So let us see if these will sort the issue with our PS1. So if you remember, our PS1 is nice and simple to take apart. There are a whole 6 screws. These were never fully put back together because I knew I was going to have to go back in them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the 6th one is hidden under here. But if you remember the way I got this done, I went under with a blade, which means if I'm careful I can simply peel back to the screw and undo them. So let's get this apart. And there we go, we're back in. You can see I did the work on the 14th of August 22. I hadn't connected the drive back up, knowing that I would be going back in. And with the drive apart, if you remember, there were 2 screws and then we had to unclip this because the gear we need to access is tucked away right under here. And there we are in, and the gear that we are looking at is this one here. So to access that gear, if I remember correctly, we've got to push that one out and then that'll give us access to the gear. Okay, so the gear's out. You can see it's clearly chipped, it's missing a tooth. And unfortunately this gear just did not want to come out. I ended up having to put a lot of pressure underneath the corner with a screwdriver and just literally pop it out. Hopefully I haven't broken the clip points in the back, but with the top casing on, that should hold everything in place regardless. So the first thing I notice, the centre hole looks not bad there. On the other side, it's going to need a little bit of work to open it up. That's not an issue. You can see the sprue points on the back of the gear, and they are making it just a little bit thicker than it should be, so I need to sand that down. The centre gear is looking absolutely spot on, so I'll be back in a minute once I've done some cleanup of this gear. So there we are, it's installed. Yeah, needed quite a bit of modification to get it to drop in. The centre hole very thin, the base quite thick. I didn't want to take a drill bit down through it because that's just asking for trouble, so a lot of the time I was using a reasonably blunt X-Acto knife, and the reason I'm using a reasonably blunt one, as you would have noticed, I was cutting towards my thumb, and while this is good enough for hard material, it's fairly blunt. Do not normally cut towards your thumb. It's not big, not clever. You will, with a sharp one, open yourself up quite nicely. Don't do as I do, do as I say. However, it is together. Whether it works or not, I don't know. So let's quickly pop everything together and let's see what happens. So here we are, we've got it together enough for testing. I've got power, I've got leads, I can access the disc flap. So using G-Police, which we know works, let's see what happens. So it moves enough to read that. Right, I can hear the gear slipping. It's trying. It's definitely trying. No, it's given up the ghost. So, why did that not work? Well, I think I can answer that. These are all gears that were printed, including the one that's currently in the PS1. What I have here are another batch of gears which came out of the same delivery, but with one big difference. Let me zoom in. So these gears, if you can see, they're almost flat. While you can see the gears, there's hardly any depth to them, and in some points there's almost no gear at all. The top gears, which are much thicker, are absolutely perfect, but unfortunately, I mean, that's a classic example. Look at that. You can't really see a gear there at all on the outer edge. So the resolution that that's been printed at, it's just no good for these, unfortunately, which is a shame. Let's just put it this way, this batch of 10 was delivered, was about £30 sterling. So you're going to be talking, what, $40, $45, something like that. Yeah, these are dead. So unfortunately, in this instance, whether it's the company I've used and their resolution isn't good enough, or these gears are just not printable, which I really don't see why that would be the case, then yeah, in this instance these are all bin material. So I'd recorded a whole end to this video, but it didn't sit well with me, so I posted up some of the images of these gears that I got from SGD in Gadget UK's Discord, where RetroGameRevival, who designed this file, resides, or at least one of the locations, and he came back saying it was absolutely shocking and that he'd just got his resin printer the issues sorted, and he was going to do some test prints, said they came out fine, and offered to send me some. So he did. Here we go. Let me try and bring these on without everything sliding off. So I've got 4 of the gears, and he's also sent me some of the NEC CD-ROM gears that he'd designed, knowing that I have one as well, the PC engine. So I've got these as spares, but look at the difference in the prints. I'll bring one up close. It's like night and day. So crisp, so clear. And as he says, this is not from a professional printer. I did, at the suggestion of a couple of people on the Discord group, reach out to SGD and say how disappointed I was and ask for a refund. And a gentleman called Sam from SGD got back in touch, really nice guy, apologised and asked if they could try and make amends. They would refund me, but they wanted to make amends by trying to do the right print, because looking at the images I'd sent, they reckon their technician should have suggested an alternative resin, and there was maybe an issue with the curing process as well. So sure enough, I got another delivery. But again, I wish when companies do this that they don't just shove everything into a bag, put it into a Ziploc. Please, yeah, I'm dropping them everywhere because they are literally falling out. Yep, that's one hitting the floor. I don't know where that one went. So here are the replacements from SGD, and again, the quality difference is night and day compared to the originals that I was sent through. Now, he did say the way the supports were done, the bottom ridge was an issue. I just don't understand how a cheap printer can get the ridge on, but a professional one can't. It's a bit odd. However, I have these through. It's interesting that one's a slightly different colour. However, I have a set for testing. So let's do a little bit of cleanup, get these holes to the point where it will drop on, and let's see what happens when we drop one of these on first. One of the replacements from SGD, because I do have to say they do seem to mesh a lot better. There are actually teeth on this by comparison to the first ones that were sent through, where the lower gear just really doesn't have much in the way of teeth at all. So give me a second, I'm going to clean this up, drop it on, we can drop it back on, find out what happens. So that's the replacement gear in. Actually forgot to show it being installed, stupid me, but it's one of the ones that I did receive from SGD. So let's find out what happens when we power on. We've got a light. Okay, we do get obviously power on the PlayStation, and we've got a screen, but not a lot until we pop a disc in. So it's detected the disc, it's spinning up. This should be a good test because G-Police has got a lot of animation to stream. That's a good sign so far. superb, it's working. So the gears from SGD, they need a little bit of cleanup, but they're working fine. So I'm going to pause here. What I need to do with these is not only do I need to reshape the center hole, which I've been doing with a small rat tail file, but this whole bottom surface is way too thick and needs a lot of filing to thin it so that it'll sit down far enough to give the clearances needed. So there's 9 there, 1 in there, gives 10. Let's now try RetroGameRevival's gears and see how we get on. So with RetroGameRevival's gear now in place, let's see what happens. Good. We're seeing the warning for piracy, G-Police logo, and the Psygnosis logo. This is looking good. And there we go, it's running. So, we now have a working laser module. So let's do the final button up of this particular system. Which is nice and simple and straightforward, because it's a case of putting the top case on and adding 6 screws. So let's do this first, and then we can finish off by removing that sticker. And there we go, we have another PlayStation 1 or PS1 done, dusted and ready to run for quite a while to come, I guess, or at least fingers crossed. So thank you for watching. A special thanks go out to RetroGameRevival for designing these. Yeah, I'd posted that I needed some of these and he said he would design it, so he did. And then when my first set of gears proved to be that bad, he sent me these. I mean, you're a star, thank you. It's a sheer fact I would have had to replace the laser if I couldn't have sourced something like this. And look at it, it's a tiny piece. The original piece is probably worth half a cent because they were mass produced, and that stops an entire PS1 from running. And these days you're what, 20, 25 pounds for a replacement laser? Crazy. So thank you very much. Again, thank you to SGD and Sam specifically for being so good and you know, coming up with these replacements. The only main criticism is the thickness of that base. The amount I had to take off, whereas even with the ridge, which is built into this file, even with the ridge, it's actually really flat and much better. So thank you both, much appreciated. Thank you Sam for sorting out the issue, and yeah, rigid 4000, that's what you want these printed in if you want to use RetroGameRevival's STL file. I'll put a link in the description so you can grab these. But yeah, thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Retro Crazy or Retro Crazy mini byte.